Welcome to Becoming More Efficient with Microsoft Teams. I'm Trevor Beck, your trainer for today. And so what we're going to do today is I'm not going to go through and show you all the basic stuff because, I mean, for the last 18 months, you've been using Teams. So I assume that there's probably most of the basic stuff you already have a handle on. So what I want to do is just show you how to be more proficient on it. So before I do that, I'm going to throw in a link to the document that I have here that we'll be using. So this is kind of a reference piece as well as other information that you can come back to and kind of like the agenda that I'll be using. So I'll post that into the, there we go, into the chat. And then it'll also be in the video description if you're watching this, the archive on this. Okay, let me start screen sharing and we'll start there. So pull up my stuff. So as I mentioned before, in the document that I've sent, there's some resources in here from Microsoft on that. One of the things that I really recommend, especially if you haven't played around a lot and you're uncomfortable, is this Microsoft Teams demo. It actually takes you through the steps, makes you click and chat and on stuff. So I really recommend if you're not comfortable, it's 15 minutes of your time, whatever. And you can skip to different sections, of course. How to manage notifications in Microsoft Teams and not get annoyed, that's really important. And especially when we talk about using Microsoft Teams and when to use that, which we'll mention in a couple seconds. Some handy automations, because Microsoft has all these different products together, they are linking them using something called Power Automate. Power Automate basically is scripts that you can create. And if you train yourself and go through all the workshops and stuff, you can write code and do all that. However, there are a bunch of scripts that already exist that you can make use of, and hopefully we'll have a chance to look at a couple of those today that you just make a copy of it and it works for you, which is really great. I did a session called SharePoint Sites in Microsoft Teams. It's a showcase. It's on my website. It's on Microsoft Stream, and there's the link to it directly there. So when you're using Teams, and you're uploading files and stuff, those files need to be stored somewhere, and they're stored in a SharePoint site. That SharePoint site's going to be different than the SharePoint site that you typically use for your department stuff. So I really recommend after this session, you take a look to see what all can be done, because it allows you, if you've got a team in Microsoft Teams and you're uploading files, but you have a website now for that team. So if that's your department, chats and stuff like that, you can create a site that allows you to do all sorts of stuff. And we'll talk a bit about that a little later. So when to use Teams versus email. Here's how I look at it. Email is great when I want to have that authentication or I want a record of something. So here's someone said, I need this request done. Great, I have it stored away in a folder or whatever else. That's, to me, is what email's for. The Teams chat kind of piece says, how are you doing? Can you get this file for me? Who was the last person to use? All those kind of transient stuff that are really quick and dirty kind of thing. But Teams also goes beyond all that, because Teams also involves our video calls, like with the one we're on right now and the training we have involved in that. So there's more to Teams. I actually spend more time in Teams. I try not to do anything in email if I can help it. Obviously, I get email, I check it and stuff. But even things like setting up a meeting and stuff, I do that in Teams because I can use the calendar there, which we'll talk about later. So let me tell you about some other things, some etiquette and tips kind of stuff. I get people pinging me all the time on Teams saying, hey, are you free? Can you talk or whatever? Here's the secret. If I go in, excuse me, if I go in and I see that your chat is green, that means you're free. I'm going to call you. It's no different than back in the days when we were at our desks and there was a phone there. I would call you. Back then, I didn't know whether you were busy or not. I just made a call and either I got you or I didn't get you. And if I didn't get you, it would go to voicemail. That all applies here. So Kelly here, as you can see, he is not available. He's on Do Not Disturb, so it won't even show up on his screen there. Nick and Lachelle are away, Nick's away. But if I find someone like Ashley, it's green, I will just go hit the video and call her. I am not going to ask if she's busy because it shows that she's not. And if she is busy and doesn't want to answer my voicemail, she doesn't have to. She can treat me like that 6 o'clock phone call we used to get at supper time, which was just someone trying to sell me something. She can just ignore me and my message will go into voicemail. which for those of you, if you've ever seen the voicemail, is awesome because not only do you get an audio recording, you get text of the transcript of your audio recording. And there are some people who tend to go on a lot. So it's like, okay, you know what, you go to voicemail, and then I just scan through the message, finally get what it is that they want, and then I can act on it. So that's one thing I really stress a lot is if it's green, green means go, just make a phone call or video call. Don't even worry about the rest of it. When you're making appointments, use the scheduling assistant, whether you're doing that in email or in Outlook or within Teams, okay? Because if you're supposed to work from 8:30 to 4:30 and there's a space open there, that means you are available. Don't ask, is it okay if I book you at that time? If it shows them available, book it. Because this is a request. I'm going to send them a request for a meeting. They can turn me down. They can say, no, that's not a good time. And when that happens, they actually get the option to propose a new time. So they'll use scheduling assistant, find a time that works better for them. Because maybe, you know, from 11 to 11:30, they were planning to do some project. Great. Then they can use the scheduling piece and book time with me. I always tell people if it's free, if it's open, like I work 7:30 to 3:30, I have my lunches booked off. Other than that, if it's free, book me time. So that's just, it just reduces that back and forth. Are you available? Yes, I am. Or you're not, blah, blah, blah. Use the scheduling system. When you're creating those events and those meetings, put in a good title and some details in the detail section, in the description. Because I take a look at the title, I take a look at the details. That's how I make decisions on whether or not I want to take your meeting if I'm busy that day. So, you know, hey, just want to chat about ABC. I'm stressed today. That can wait till next week. So I will I will turn down the appointment. I'll propose a new time and off it goes. But I can't make those decisions when the title is Google stuff. Nope, need some stuff, information. And the details is important for a couple of reasons. Number one, it gives me, again, an opportunity to be prepared when I show up. So if you said Google stuff, but in the details it said you want to look over this Google form you created for me, then I can go to the form, familiarize myself, and I come prepared for whatever needs to be done. So details is good for that. But it's also good for the meetings themselves. So I'm just going to show you this particular meeting. I'm going to pull it up. And in my the three dots here, so in my description for this meeting, let me pull it up so you can see it. So in here, I have, whoops, session runs 9 to 10. Here's my agenda items that I want to cover. Okay, sounds good. And that's what, and I could do, this is the same section, that description section that's in Outlook. When we're in our meeting, look what happens. So when I have back-to-back meetings, I can never remember from one meeting to the other, what are we meeting about? Okay, so maybe the title here will help me, but if not, I can go into meeting info and look, session runs 9 to 10, agenda. Oh, here's what we're talking about. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. I use this all the time, and I can't stress this enough, is being prepared, being available, and being ready for all your sessions. And this is just a nice quick reminder of everything I need, URLs, whatever. So really can't stress that enough, that you need to include that in your descriptions of your appointments. Oh, where did my page go? Because we do a lot of stuff online, and even when we return to the campus, we'll still be doing a lot of online stuff. Schedule your time off, because otherwise people will book time off. So because I start at 7:30 to 3, and I go to 3:30, my lunch I take at 11:30 to 12:30. So I've actually booked that time off, so nobody can book a meeting with me from 11:30 to 12. In Outlook, you can actually set your meeting length. So instead of being an hour, it can be 50 minutes. Because the reality is, before, we used to have that 10-minute break between meetings, because it'd be like, okay, I'm in building 5. I got another meeting over in building 7. I have to leave 10 minutes before that meeting starts. So it gives me that time to get up, take a break, et cetera, et cetera. If you set that up in Outlook, it applies into Teams as well. And that way you don't burn yourself. Because before I did that, I mean, people would be booking me from back to back to back. I would go with no breaks for a whole day. And that's just killer. So make sure you put in your 10-minute break in there. And the last thing is when on a call, ignore the chats, okay? I mean, you will see stuff ping, ping, ping. You know what? That'll wait. Think of it again as priority. If I send you an email, are you expecting everyone to open it up as soon as it gets sent? Because get ready for disappointment because they have other things to do. And I mean, there are days I don't get to my email for like 2 days. So email's kind of like a postcard. You put a postcard in the mailbox, you don't expect the other person on the other end to receive it within seconds and read it. So email is not a high priority, quickly react kind of thing. That's where we move to Teams, which is a more online, just-in-time kind of process. And quite frankly, even with chats and everything else that's going on, I would be making phone calls to make sure that I'm talking to you if it's truly urgent. Okay, so those are my etiquettes and my tips and pet peeves and stuff all thrown together. So what I want to do first, though, is rather than go through chat and all that, I want to start off with video calls because that's where we spend a lot of time in. So I'm going to take this page here and I'm going to move it off to the side here. Okay, so let me just start off here and close this item. Oops, close this item. So in Microsoft Teams, on the left-hand side, there is the calendar. And you can go into the calendar, and this will be your personal calendar. It's the same one as your Outlook calendar. In Outlook, you can have layers, right? So I could have my personal calendar. I could subscribe to a couple other calendars. Maybe there's a team calendar, and they all get layered on top of each other. But the bottom layer, the main layer, is my personal calendar. And that's what I have here. I will often spend more time booking my appointments through here than Outlook. I rarely use Outlook for those meetings and stuff. Because one of the biggest advantage is that when I book an appointment, it automatically adds a link for the video call. Depending on how you have Outlook set up, you might have to manually trigger that. Now, there was supposed to be an update that Outlook or Microsoft did a few months ago that turned that on automatically. If not, there's something in the knowledge base on how to turn it, but just go into settings and there's a tag there that says automatically add video calls links to your appointments. But here it adds it all together. And I like to use that. The other thing that's great about it is once we start these video calls, we have all this information tied together in that appointment. So I'm just going to pull up this screen here. And in here, I have the option to start having meeting notes. Now, meeting notes is very simple. It's not a high-end, what do I call it? Hang on a second. It's not a major word processor. It's meeting notes. So if you think of it this way, back years ago, you'd have a meeting, you'd have a stenographer, and the stenographer would have their pad, their steno pad, and they would jot down really short notes, and then they would take those notes and use those notes to create meeting minutes and agendas and other documents. That's exactly what these notes are. They're not high level, they're just quick and dirty. Everyone that's part of this meeting can view them and can also contribute to them, which is nice. But it's not a high-end word processor. It's just a place to capture all the notes. What's nice about it is that with this appointment, there will always be a link to those notes. So I can go back in time and look at those things. Same thing if I go in and I can turn on transcriptions. So transcription is Microsoft Secretary that sits there, or sorry, admin assistant, that sits there and basically writes down everything that you say. So if we take a look at it, I'll show you. When I started the recording, transcripts also starts, and it's writing down everything that I say. And if anyone else were to be speaking while we're doing this, it would write their stuff down as well. So transcripts is awesome. It's a great way for referencing back. What did we talk about at that meeting? But rather than have all these files in different locations, they're all tied to the appointment. So let me show you an example of this from before. I had a meeting, so I'm going to go in my calendar. And I'm going to look for remove contacts from Outlook, which I think I did last week. There it is there. So I'm going to go and edit this, which is basically view it. And in here, we can see all these assets that are tied to this meeting. I just had to come to this meeting and I can find who came. So we can see here, Wamik was there, but there's attendance record here. There's also some other notes and stuff, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I can download who all came and when they started and when they left the meeting. Remember that notes that I was talking about? Well, here are the notes that we took during that meeting. I can use that information and build a document or put it in Planner or whatever I want. But it allows me 2 years from now to come back and go, oh, here's what we talked about. The transcript. What did I say? What can I say? So here's the transcript of everything that was captured. Here's the video. The video is stored on Microsoft land. McEwen right now has a policy in place that policy being a rule in the admin side that says we will not delete them. But if you're working with anybody else, they might not have the same thing. By default, Microsoft has said, hey, videos tied to or recordings tied to meetings will be removed after 90 days. Because most people by 90 days, either you've looked at it or you haven't looked at it. And if you've looked at it, you got everything you need after 3 months. The transcripts will always be there, just if you needed the actual original video. Because I mean, transcripts are not perfect. Let's be honest. But transcripts are great. So you can, if you start a recording of the session, like I have here, it automatically does transcripts. I can also just start transcripts without recording. So this is great if you're an advisor working with a student or someone talking to a student. You can say, hey, you know what? I'd like to capture transcripts. This is Microsoft's way of capturing what we say. So we both have a record of what was said. Okay. And then that's really good CYA kind of stuff, cover your butt stuff, because down the road when someone says, hey, you told me 30%, and you can go back and say, well, no, according to the records, it says 40%. So it's just nice to have that reference information that's available. And guess what? It's all tied to that calendar event. So you don't have to go looking. Is it in Google Drive? Did I put it over here in SharePoint? Is it in OneDrive? Where did I find this stuff? All this stuff here is together in one location. So can't stress enough. Yes, but sure, by all means.
So you have to turn transcripts on. So it's not automatically on. You have to turn it on.
You have to turn it on. That is correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
And it'll have a warning that pops up on the screen to say, hey, guess what? Transcripts are being enabled. So it's not like nobody knows about it. But right. Obviously, it's always good to be transparent and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to turn transcripts on. We're not recording your face or anything like that. It's just writing down the words you say.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, not a problem. Yeah, these are functions that a lot of people haven't started using yet, and every chance I can. This is so important for that backup. And I mean, an old fart like me, my brain just kind of dies and dries up, so I can't remember anything. But if I take notes here, if it's a transcript, I can go back. This particular session was an instructional piece, so it's something that Wamik has access, and anytime he wants to learn how to remove contacts from Eloqua, I've gone and done a video demo of it. Other things that are available to you in there is a whiteboard. So and the whiteboards come a long way. So it's a place where everyone can draw on and stuff. And then breakout rooms is another thing. So breakout rooms is probably more for training sessions. Or if you've got a large committee group and you want to break them out, you can do breakout rooms. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail because they're pretty straightforward. You indicate how many people you want in a room. You can manually put everyone together, or else you can just say randomly grab people and throw them in a room. As an instructor online, one of the ways that I've used it is that you have a maximum of 50 rooms. So I haven't had classes of 50 rooms yet, but in the old days, when I was in a classroom setting, I could walk around and look over people's shoulder as they were working on an assignment. I can't do that digitally or electronically, whatever, virtually here. But what I can do is I can say, you know what, guys, I'm going to put you all in your own breakout room. So you're by yourself. When you're in that breakout room, please share your screen. And then I just jump from one breakout room to the other and look over their shoulder while they're working. And that way I can just quickly go through it. So it's the same thing as walking around. It's just I can go in. Yeah, you know what you're doing. Okay, do you have any questions? Great. I'll go to the next person. You know what you're doing. Oh, you look like you're going to have problems there. I can jump in. So breakout rooms is good for that. It's not just for committee kind of stuff. You, as an instructor, you can definitely make use of that. Okay, so that's part, and all this stuff is available when you create it. All of it's available right here up top. So I've got my participants, I have my chat, we all have reactions that we can put in, and there's my breakout rooms. The 3 dots, that's where we're going to have the transcript information. I can also turn on captions. So live captions is different than transcripts because it just displays on the screen, but it's not captured anywhere. So if you turn on captions, that doesn't get captured anywhere. Transcripts are the only thing that get captured. Okay, let me just turn off live captions. Live captions is great because sometimes you have problems with your audio. So, I mean, I've had problems with my audio and it's like, well, I could restart my computer. You know what, guys, I'm turning on live captions. My microphone works, my speaker doesn't. I'm just going to follow the words on the screen. So go ahead, carry on with the meeting, and I will pop up and say something when I have something to say. Just understand I might be a little slower because I have to read what's on the screen before I reply. So I've used that a few times and it's great. It works really well. And when everyone understands Trevor's a little slow, it's because he's still reading some of the stuff. What else did I want to show in here? So meeting info, as I mentioned before, is that data that we get from the putting into the Outlook descript or the meeting descriptions. There's my meeting notes. And then I have something called meeting options. Meeting options can be set before or during the meeting. So typically I will go into my meeting options here and I will change those. And here's what happens. Here are these settings here. So who can bypass the lobby? Right now I've set it for everyone because we have students, I have guests that sometimes pop in. I don't want that popping up and going, so-and-so wants to join the meeting. Yes, 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 yes. I could do that. But you know what? And usually by default, it's people in my organization, trusted orgs, and guests. That's the default setting. I just set it to everyone. I don't care who's going to come watch this. I'm not charging for it. Doesn't matter. So I can change that. But you can, I mean, the default setting's here, but you can change this to whatever you want. Announce calls. These are phone call stuff. I forget that. Who can present? Well, typically I just want me. You know, depending on what I'm doing. In this case here, I'm doing a presentation more so than a hands-on thing. So I'm the only one that needs to present. But if I'm in a classroom setting and I want someone to show me what the problem is, then I will change this to everyone because whoever's joined can now start the presentation. I can still turn it off on them. So if there's, I mean, we've heard stories of this in classes where some student will share something inappropriate. I can still change that to whatever I want. Allowing mics for attendees. So right now, when you signed up for this session, you are an attendee. You are not a participant. And so I can have your mics just be off, and it could be just, hey, you know what? You just sit and watch, and I will talk, and that's all that's going to happen. I like more of a back and forth. If I had like 200 or 300 people, that would change completely. But for smaller groups like that, and everyone's pretty good about it, you have all that data in there. There's where we record. And the chats, this is a good one to keep in mind, especially if you're doing something that's supposed to be private or secure. So I can turn the chats off. So if I turn it off, it's off. There are no chats allowed. Or I can do in meeting only. When this is enabled, and let's say I've invited you to my meeting, I can use the chat ahead of time, which I highly recommend to people. So if I have a meeting, so for example, let me go back to here. So here's this meeting that I had with Wamik. Let's say the meeting is set for Thursday. Well, the chat's live now. So I can go in at any point in time and start having a conversation with him or the participants of this meeting before the meeting starts. So we can get stuff done before that meeting actually starts running. Hey, here's a document I'd like you to look over. Can you check it out? We'll look at the steps 1, 2, 3 during the meeting, but just make sure I've captured all the steps that we need, and then we can go through and look at it, blah, blah, blah. So you can have work getting done before the meeting even starts. Things like, hey, here's a link to the last week's or last month's agenda. Can you, minutes. Can you review the minutes? And everyone can review the minutes, and of course you can use give them access to the document and do collaborative stuff. But here you're going to do the back and forth, change this date to this date, blah blah blah, so that when you have your meeting, it's like, okay, everyone's looked at it, we had a chance to talk about it before the meeting even started, approve the minutes, bang, we're gone. So there's 10 minutes back, because every meeting I've been to, it's always the same. Has everyone read the minutes? Yeah, okay. And then you end up rehashing some of the stuff. So you can save yourself 5 or 10 minutes easily that way. So those are the meeting options. So let me show you what this looks like from start to finish, just so you can see, and then we'll move on to some of the other stuff. So here's my calendar. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to create a calendar event here. Actually, I'm going to close this first. I want to show you something else. So let's close this. I want to do a meeting here on Wednesday, let's say. Now, if I click on this, it's just going to be a regular meeting, inviting regular people, et cetera, et cetera. I can also do a meeting right now. So I want to do a video call right now. Well, I don't want to schedule it. I just want to do a video call. If I hit Meet Now here, I can get a link and I can share this out and start the meeting. This will go out to all the people. So there's no time associated with it. It's just like I'm going to ring you up, or here's a link to join in on my Zoom meeting, same kind of concept. So this is a link I can share out by email, text messaging, whatever. People click on it, they come and they join. And I start the meeting and I go in and get that started. That's great. That's a like, do it now. I don't need to schedule it. So those are really handy. I use those quite often, especially with external people. I don't want to have to do here's a meeting appointment and I send it to you, then we'll open it up. No, we're just going to meet now. The disadvantage of it, though, is that some of those things do not, those assets don't get created. So, for example, the recordings, recording the session and the transcripts, those things, or sorry, recording might, the transcripts usually don't. You can't get transcripts unless it's a scheduled meeting. So some features aren't always there. I know they're talking about rolling more out and making it more feature parity with scheduled meetings. Right now it's not. So just be aware of that. But this is a quick, dirty way of here's a link, send it off, let's start chatting now. Over here under meeting, there's actually 3 kinds of meetings available though. Your typical one is your scheduled meeting. That's what we typically do. And when I just click on a page down here, that's what it is a scheduled meeting. I can also organize a webinar. So a webinar is basically you listen, I talk. So remember those options, the meeting options where, participants or attendees have their mics on or off. The webinar basically has those settings turned off. And they have other settings set up so that it's truly a webinar, which basically means Trevor is in control, whoever he's invited as a co-host or a co-presenter can be involved, and everyone else is going to be just watching. And then there's live events, which most people aren't going to use. That's when you want to do a whole show. Live events, I suspect eventually will go away because the webinar is pretty much the same thing. So this is older technology, but it is there. Most of us, and me included, I just stick with these 2. And typically it's a scheduled meeting. So I'm going to just quickly go create a meeting here. And there's my scheduling assistant. Hey, that's great because the moment that I put in required attendees, so I'm going to put in user 30, which is my test account. Now I have access to their schedule. So I can put in my people, put in a good title. So work on resume, go to my scheduling assistant, and just like before, I can see who's available when, all the way there. I can add some more required attendees. I can add some optional attendees if I want, but there, and I can go to from left to right. I can see where we've got some free time. So there's a spot there on Friday at 11. I can grab that. Really, really important to use that scheduling assistant. So I'm going to go back to my details. They added this thing here where if you're using the categories or the colors here, so I have some stuff here, I can attach that. So when I'm doing training, and my training stuff is always yellow, I can use that. Response options. And the response options basically means, do you get a notification that someone is going to join the meeting? So you can turn those off, because if you had 200 people, that's 200 people firing in going, yep, I can do it, yep, I can do it, yep, I can do it. I don't need to see all that. And then I can do registrations. I'm not going to go into that now, but basically the page that you guys viewed to look at my session was a registration page. So I actually have got people registered and I get reports about that. And that includes who is registered. So ahead of time, I can go in and I can pull up the list of names of everyone that is registered for my session. And that's how I've been communicating through email over the last little bit so that I can go in and do that. Once I go ahead and send this off to whoever it's going to be, I'm just going to let it get itself created. Where did it go? Where did it go? Did I not have it here? I lost it. All right. Okay, I'll go back here. Once I've gone and created that, Then I can go in and I can see here where to go here. Just give me 2 seconds. Meeting options, that will give me that that same information where I can go and set up all the meeting options. So who has the microphone on, who can present their show. I can do all that ahead of time. Okay. Questions on any of this? I know it's a lot I'm throwing at you, but this is the stuff we use every day. So it's kind of important that at least you know what's available up there. One of the things I also want to show you is and this is always get a kick out of it, is people will go, well, who are we waiting for? Who's supposed to be in this meeting? Who are we waiting for? Well, if you go to the show participants here, guess what? There's everyone that's supposed to be participating. So here's my presenter. Cynthia is showing up as an attendee, but I've invited test user 30. Where the heck are they? They're supposed to be here. Well, I can go here and click on request to join. Basically, it's doing the phone call to them so that they join this meeting. So we can see he's not around, maybe he's not near his computer, or maybe he's just doing paperwork. So I can just click on request to join, and it's basically now calling them. So when you've got these meetings that start at 9 o'clock and you're waiting for people, you don't have to wait anymore. You can come into here and you can start calling them. You can also see their status, because if they're not here, their status is going to show away today or something like that. So that's really important that you come into here, check out the statuses. So when these meetings start, anytime I have a meeting start, the first thing I do is I bring this up so I can see, okay, we're all here. It's 2 minutes to, let's get started now. We don't need to wait for anybody else. Chat, straightforward. Reactions, a lot of people don't use them other than the hands up thing. Hands up is good when there's a large group of people and stuff like that. But I mean, and it just shows up on your screen. As long as people are looking for it, it works great. Let me just caption break rooms and stuff. And then just so you know, it's available here with this plus sign here, or this down here. There's a thing called add an app. So slowly Microsoft is adding different apps that you can use in the meeting. So for this particular meeting, I can have a poll, or I can do a Q&A. The Q&A is still a bit rough. They're still kind of working on it, but you can do a quick poll. So, show of hands, how many people own a Mac versus a Windows machine. So I can do a quick poll that way. And I can, again, by going into the actual meeting setup ahead of time, because here I have to launch the meeting to get to it here, but here I can add it before the meeting starts. I can create a bunch of those questions ahead of time. And so when I'm ready, I can just in the meeting, just quickly go into here, put a poll in and get a list of that. These polls are created using Microsoft Forms. So down the road, I can go into Microsoft Forms, which is part of OneDrive and SharePoint, and I can pull the form out for becoming more proficient with Microsoft Teams, and I can see what the records were or what the results were down the road. So 3 months from now, hey, how many people were Mac users in that group? I can come back here, look at my poll, it should show up here in the assets, but if not, it'll show up under forms, and then I can get the answers to that. Okay. Last thing, of course, I think most people know this, that I can go in here, I can mute participants, I can disable their mics and cameras, I can make them a presenter, I can spotlight them. And spotlight basically means whatever they're showing, and when they talk, it's going to stay on them, not move to someone else. If someone asks a quick question, it's not going to do that cut back and forth from the camera angle. It's going to keep everyone pinned there. And last thing, under participants, that's where I can mute all. That's where I can disable for attendees, for all attendees, and I can download my list after that. Questions on the actual video call component? Okay. Then let's talk about the chat side of things.
I do have a question. Sorry, I had to minimize again to find my mic.
No worries.
So
I think Control M. Sorry, I was just going to say, I think Control M allows you to mute and unmute your microphone on your keyboard.
Thank you.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so my question is, I forget my question. You cannot record in breakout rooms, correct?
That is not correct. You can.
You can record in breakout rooms?
Yep. In fact, the first when Breakout Rooms first came out, I did a session. We bunch of us were on my tech teams group, practiced it, and the cool thing about it is, so I'm the owner of this meeting. So if we go into breakout rooms, somebody can go in and record those breakout rooms. In the end, I'm still sharing my screen. Yes, I am. In the end, it all shows up in here. So all breakout rooms will show up like this, right? But they will show up as breakout room 1 or something like that. There it is. So room 1, room 2, room 3. So these are the breakout rooms. So it's like an event, the breakout rooms. And if there's my attendance, and you can also get recordings for it. It's been a few months, so it might have disappeared. But last I checked it, you can do recordings.
Okay.
And now if I've gotten that mixed up, let me know. But last time, like I said, last time I tried it, from what I remember, the recordings all show up here off to the side as well, because they're basically just another video call with all the same components. It's just a different room and different names and people and participants. But I have control over it, that I can jump in and back and forth. But they should all record.
Okay, the reason I ask is because we are currently using Zoom, but we have for different things, but we have to use Blackboard for so we have students meeting actors doing scenarios, and those are recorded and marked by instructors. And so with Zoom, you can't have 2 meetings at the same time. So if we had 6 students meeting with 6 actors at the same time, you'd have to have 6 Zoom accounts. So we use Blackboard, but you can't record in the breakout rooms in Blackboard. So I'm wondering if we could use Teams instead, because we're having some issues with Blackboard.
Okay, tell you what, I want to keep the motion going with this.
I could test it.
At the end of the session, we'll pause. Actually, I only have 20 minutes left. At the end of this session, we'll pause it, and then we'll go and practice it.
Well, no, I can try it out myself as well. But okay, thank you.
Well, I need to know too now. So now you got me interested. So okay, I need to know that.
Thank you.
So yeah, we'll do that. No worries. Okay, so all right. So that's the video call stuff. So let's go back to the main screen here of our window. I'm just going to scroll up to the top here, and there's my test user. So one of the things I wanted everyone to do is up in the corner here, if you have your initials or something like that, just click on that. You can go in and change your profile picture. I can't stress enough how important this is, that you have a proper picture of yourself up there. Because when I'm in a meeting of 15 people, especially if there is a bunch of people that I don't know, I can take a quick look and see who is there with me. So for example, here I'm looking at Cynthia, so I can see Cynthia's here. I had an idea what she looks like. That's great. So when the video starts up, I can quickly recognize her. Having a picture of your cat or a emoticon or an animated version of yourself does me no good. Save that for Facebook and your personal accounts. Let's put these pictures up here so that we know what we look like. So that's like the first thing that I always tell people is put a real picture in there. We get in tech support, we get staff, new staff all the time, right? Especially in September, we have a bunch of new students that are helping out. I have no idea what these guys look like, but it would be nice if you had a picture there so I have an idea. So those are the kind of things that for me is really important. We also have a place where you can edit your status. So I can go into here, and right now it shows me as presenting. So there's all my different status that I can have. Some of these like appear offline or away or busy are based on whatever's going on in my calendar. So in my calendar, if I take the day off and I say I'm out of office, that will appear offline, which is great. But I can also do that here, just like right now. I can also say, you know what, I want to be do not disturb for 10 minutes. So I'll go into here, select duration, I think it's half an hour, 1 hour, whatever, and make me do not disturb. And so I can select a duration and a status. And then when that time's up, the status switches to whatever it should be for that, that moment in time. Duration status, yeah. Do not disturb is different than busy. Busy means if I get a text message from somebody, like a message here, it'll pop up on my screen. I can ignore it, whatever, and that's fine because I mean, I don't have to reply to people as soon as a message comes in. That's not what that's about. I get to it when it's convenient for me. Do not disturb means I do not want to see any pop-up stuff, okay? So right now, because I'm presenting, it shows me as, do not disturb presenting. If someone was to send me a message, and give me 2 seconds, I'm going to bring up an account, my other account here, and I'm going to send myself a message. Come on, where's my other account? Profiles, user 30. So just give me 2 seconds here. Whoops, go back here. I'll keep this window open, thank you. So, so my test account's going to send, hey, you in? So I just got a reply or a message sent to me. Whoops, only because I had tech that's set up. Let me go to somewhere else. So I'll go to here. Yo. All right. So I just sent another message. Now, here's what's happened. It hasn't appeared anywhere on my screen. It doesn't pop up. But what it will do is I will get a notice up here. So that count still works. So if I got my head down or something like that, there I can see there it is again. I don't have to, I'm not going to get disturbed. It's just a little minor thing up there. When I have time, I can look up and go, oh, okay, there's a message there and it's from test user 30. Then I can go look at it. But I do not have to respond. I do not have to get interrupted. So do not disturb is great. The problem with do not disturb though is if you go up to here and select do not disturb, it stays on and does not turn off. So if you're using do not disturb, I would say hit duration first, end of day, put do not disturb. Otherwise, tomorrow when I come back, it's still do not disturb, and I won't be seeing anything popping up when I would want to. You can change who can get through that by going into your settings. So in my settings under my privacy, I can manage do not disturb. So there are some people that I want to be reachable by regardless, and that would be like my manager. So Lachelle and Nick and a couple of people from web services, because I used to work over there. These people, if they need to get through to me, they can get through. So their screens popping up will show up, even when I'm in do not disturb. But everybody else, you're not important, so just stay away. Those are some really important things to take a look at. In your settings, also, you can go in here and adjust your notifications. People will say, oh, I keep getting these pop-up messages and blah, 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 and all this stuff. Well, you can go down here and you can manage what you see. So do you get an email update? If I miss something, do you get an email to show you what you've missed? I put mine every hour because, quite frankly, I live in Teams more than I do Outlook. So I rarely get an email coming through. I always see stuff popping up here. How do I want to be notified? Now I'm on a Mac. It's going to be a little bit different for Windows, but not a lot. But do I want a preview, or do I just want something to say, Trevor sent something? Do I want sound popping up? I can do that. What do I want changed? So here's all my activity, mentions and replies, create a custom, and you decide what you're going to see and when. And there's some other stuff in there. So some people, they'll say, oh, I get so much stuff from all these team stuff. It's all garbage. I don't want it. Well, that's fine. Go and turn off your notifications or set it up so that you're not being bugged all the time. That will make your life so much easier for that. Let's go into chats now for a second. Just make sure that I did that. Yeah, I want to go and show you a couple of tricks with chats. I'm going to go over here into my user 30. So take a look here. I'm going to go in here, and this happens all the time. You start typing then you want a paragraph, and so you hit a paragraph, and then man, now I've got this. Like this should all have been in one thought. So there's two ways to get around that. If you hold your shift key down when you hit the carriage return, it puts in a line break. So I can do this. My first line, I hold my shift key down, I hit this. Look at that. Shift key down, two of those. I can now put in multiple paragraphs of information just by holding the shift key down. The other way around it is the format tool. And I tend to use that a lot because sometimes I forget about the shift key down. And this allows you to do formatting. So I can go into here. I mean, the shortcut keys still work if I want to bold and stuff like that. But if I want to do bulleted lists and stuff like that, I need to come in here. The best part though is once I'm in this format stuff, carriage returns doesn't mean send, carriage returns means carriage return. So I can go into here and hit double carriage returns, and without holding the shift key down, I can still get all that. And there's all sorts of other different formatting and stuff. I'm not going to go through and teach you all the basics and stuff, but make sure you go through, check out, like there's a links, there's your horizontal and all that kind of stuff. I can also quickly upload a file. Now there's two ways of doing the file. If I come into here, there is the, where to go, because Trevor, there's a link there, right? So that does the link, but I can also do attachments. Where's my attachment? It's been so long since I've done it this way. Come on, Trevor, don't be a dummy. Somewhere there's a place to do attachments, and I can't remember. But it'll come to me as I go along here. No, but if I happen to have a window open, so I'm going to go into delete at will here. Let's see if I can find, there's audio standards. I click and drag this. Whoops, try that again, Trevor. Not all of that, just the one item. I click and come on. Me and my mouse are having problems. So imagine, if you will, go. Come on, bad mouse. Imagine, if you will, that I clicked and dragged this into this window. What will happen is it will actually upload the file. So I don't actually have to go in and find the file and do that stuff. I can just click and drag here. So here's a couple things to understand. When I'm in a chat and I upload a file, in order for this to be available to everyone else and not download like an email, that file gets stored in OneDrive. So even though it's on my desktop, the moment that I drag it into here, it's now in OneDrive, and that's where I'll be making my changes. We should not be emailing copies of files out to people anymore. Those days are done. We are now online, which means your files live in OneDrive or SharePoint, which means there's one copy, the file that we're all working on right now, not the multiple set of copies that we see all over the place. With this conversation that I've got, and we start our chats, again, everyone knows this, but I'll just say it. If I start my chat up here, it's going to go into here to ask for the name and email or the name of a group or a tag that we've gone in there, but I can start typing in whoever I want. If I've had a conversation with them already, so I'm going to do user 30 here, it just says, hey, you already had a conversation. We'll just pick up where you left off. Okay, that's great. Because I've got this conversation here, I'm just going to pull back into here. This is kind of like our personal one-on-one conversation. And sometimes we are going to be chatting about stuff and referencing information. Up top here is a menu structure. So here's a chat. Here are all the files that I've ever uploaded to this person. And these files, I said, are all stored in OneDrive. So I can go to OneDrive and find them there. But I can add other applications or links at the top. So I can make this like our own personal portal page, right? So let's say test user and I, we work on the same files a lot. Boy, test user. So organization will show up, but we always deal stuff with CBC. So we always want to check the CBC site. So I can actually add CBC up here. I can also add a file from a Microsoft Word file that already exists, or a stream video, or an Excel file. It's just a link up there so that I don't have to go into my OneDrive to go find it. It's always going to be in there. So I'm just going to go into Word for a minute. And let's say we always do this meal here. So I'm just going to put this in there. And I'll give this a name. This is our reference doc. And I can post it in the chat. Sure. But what happens now is it shows up top here. Now, because the space is limited, it might get moved over, because if I end up going to CBC and it'll show CBC website there, great, look at all that stuff, then it gets moved to the more section. So then I would have to go back here and go and pull up that reference doc again. And to throw a website in there, it's just use this website link. So these are all different file types, but this is the website link, and you just put in the URL of what you want. So you can go in and customize this like a mini portal page for yourself. I can add other users and create a group chat. So the test user 30 here is always going to be between the two of us. That's our personal conversation. But the moment that I want to bring somebody else in, I click on here. I'll add the name. So I'm going to do user. Come on. Let's try user 21. Not sure I've done a chat with them yet. And I can add anybody else. This now becomes a group chat, which is different than a personal one-on-one chat. Group chat has all these different people, and I can add people to this group and they can leave. The group chat is like a conversation at a water cooler, right? 3 people might be there, 2 more might come in. The first person goes, I'm bored with this now, so I'm going to leave. Same thing here. So you can have all these different people in there. Once you've got a group chat, you can also rename it. So you have to put in a message here first. So test. But once that test message gets sent out, you now have the opportunity to go into here and rename it. Call it whatever you want. I actually created a group for this training session. So there's my Microsoft Teams training session for here. I added all the members of it that were in there, of which not a lot of people have attended the session. But I now have a chat here that we could go through, and all those members, all 11 of them, as you can see here, would be involved in that. I can go and customize the links at the top here, add whatever apps or documents or links to web pages that I want, and have a mini portal here that we can make use of. Boy, that was a long talk. Did that make sense now that I've done that? No? Yes? Okay.
Yes,
right.
I'm good. Yes.
Okay, good. Trevor talks. He doesn't shut up. The other nice thing about this team here is now I can also do a video call with this group. So when we've got whether it's a group here or a team, which we'll talk about, hopefully we'll have time to talk about that. But I can go up in here, and if I click on this, all members of this are going to get ringed. Ringed are going to get rung up. Sure, rung. So again, this is also very important that I have these groups here that I can always constantly make use of. So let me go back up to this group here. I've got one called group chat. So in that group chat, I have 4 people. I have my test users, those accounts, and then Trevor. So if I want to, I can go in here and start a call, and guess what? Okay, I'm back. That was weird. So it ended up switching calls. So what ended up happening is I made the call, and it ended up going and calling all those people. And I'm flustered because I can't remember what happened. So I sent it off to this group here. So I made the call that I was on now, which is the recording, got put on hold, and then I went to this other call. So that's why I disappeared for a second. So I can make a call right now for this group. If I do a chat, it's going to be the chat group here. Just a couple other things down at the bottom I want to go over really quickly. Priority. All right, let's try this again. So I'm back in test user 30. Down at the bottom here is this important or urgent. I can flag this call or this chat here to be something a little different. So notice here, there's this red border here, and it says important. This basically says, hey, you know what? This isn't a regular chat. This is something I want you to be aware of. So that happens when I select important, and you can see it's marked here. When I select urgent, what's going to happen is I get this here, and every 2 minutes for 20 minutes, my test user 30 screen or whoever I'm involved with is going to get a ping on their screen saying, hey, this is urgent. We do not use the term emergency. Emergency is for lives at risk. Somebody's going to get hurt, that kind of stuff. So nowhere in any of the conversations should someone say, oh, I've got an emergency because I got to change something on the website. Not an emergency. It's important, it's urgent, yes, but emergency means lives at risk. Gunmen on the campus, chlorine spill in a building. Those are emergencies. Everything else is important and urgent. And as you can tell, it's one of my pet peeves and trigger points. So when you're talking or whatever, Microsoft's done a great job. If I need to, I can make stuff stand out from regular kind of conversations. The other thing I can do here, though, besides, oh, there's the attachment, duh. But I can do chats windows here and just quick smileys and stuff. And just so you know, if you put your cursor over the smiley, it'll tell you what the shortcut is. So I'll just get it to come up again. Come on. So shortcut is bracket, happy face, close bracket. So I just have to start typing that here. Bracket, happy face. Oh, look at that. Okay. And then I can just close it, or I can just hit enter, and I will insert that piece in. My favorite is Ninja. And when I post that, I get a big ninja who's in action. So there's lots of little stuff there. We have our animated GIFs we've talked about, or sorry, everyone knows about Jiffies and that. But calendar, here's where I typically make my calendar appointments. I go into here, and there's my calendar. And because I was in a conversation with test user 30, his name is already added to that. Same thing with the group. Go to my group chat here. I want to schedule a meeting. Whoops, hit the wrong button. Schedule a meeting. There's those test users. Add in my title, put in my description. Bang, it's in their calendars. They can choose not to. Remember, use the scheduling assistant before I go ahead and said. So tentative user 1 it's right now is, I think he's probably offline forever. Yeah. But I mean, everyone else, I can find a meeting time somewhere. And so like with these guys here, I can put an appointment or a meeting there, review my details and stuff, add any links, and bang, off it goes. That's how I typically will do my meetings, because I've always got chats and stuff going on somewhere with those people already. You can also do that, whoops, close this, discard it, by the calendar here. So when I go to calendar and I pick up time, when I go to add attendees, will allow me to do a group? No. But if I have a team, it'll allow me to add the team there. So I have a team called Trev's Tech Tips. Trev's what? Tech Tips. Imagine, if you will, if I could remember the name of the team. But I'm going to go over here to teams here real quickly. I have a team here called Trev Tech Tips. I can invite them through this as well. I'm almost out of time. I should have made this a longer session. All right, let me just quickly review and make sure I got the big stuff in there. We talked about that. We talked about our group chats, adding calendars. Quick thing with the group chats, I'm going to go back here because again, a lot of the stuff that we talked about here applies to your team. When you've got a group chat, and sometimes you want to ask a quick poll. So who's interested in golf? But see these things here? There's these reactions. I can quickly go in and go a thumbs up or thumbs down. I often will tell people, hey, I'm going to do a poll. Just give me a thumbs up or happy face or frowny face. Happy face means yes, frowny face means no. The nice thing about it is it also does a count. So I can go in and find out how many people and who they are that aren't happy, who are happy. So rather than doing a whole poll and inserting a poll and stuff like that, which you can do because there's a poll icon down the bottom here, this here does not allow you to do that. Okay, last thing I'm going to show you, just bear with me and then I'll be done. But if I go into here, one of the things I hate about this is if someone sends me a message, but I can't act on it right now. So can you explain how to cook a turkey? No, I can't do that right now. I can go into here and mark this as unread. So under the 3 dots, there's all these different things we can do. I can mark it as unread so that it shows up here. This comes bold. So tomorrow I can come back and look at it and go, okay, here's some stuff I need to read. But a great function is under more actions. You should see, and if you don't, let me know, because I had some, this kind of disappeared yesterday, but I can do create a new poll, create a task. If I create a task, that actually goes in my to-do, Microsoft to-do list, and I can assign a time and stuff like that. But there is an automation called follow up. Now you might have to schedule that in through Power Automate, and I will put a link in the chat after this is done. In the description, but Power Automate allows me to add this script that says, hey, follow up on this. I pick a time, so I'm going to do tomorrow. Actually, I'm not going to do tomorrow, I'll do Thursday. I can pick a time at 2 a.m. because that makes sense, put in some notes and hit submit. And what will happen is at that point in time, I will get a message from Power Automate here that will say, hey, and here we have an example. I have a note here, there's Power Automate, and then the message content that I did. That'll show up at the date and time I indicated. Then I hit go to message, and it'll take me to the original message that I want to be reminded of, which is up here, hey, busy. Okay, that's my time in a couple minutes more. I'm going to stop there, and then I think I'm going to need to do in a more advanced section to go talk about other stuff. But I think you've probably picked out a lot of hopefully some new stuff that maybe you weren't aware of that Microsoft can do. Questions? Okay, then I'm going to stop the recording here. All right, let me stop the recording.